Hey guys, you're welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexandra Valentine, and here we post all things sewing tutorials and whatnot. So today we're going to be drafting and sewing this beautiful dress that you just saw earlier. So first thing first, I have folded my fabric on a fold of 2, and right now I am minusing 5 inches because we are going to be cutting this gown as an off shoulder. So we are going to minus 5 inches, and then we'll start marking our vertical measurement, which is the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and the hip line. So for the hip line, I'll come down from the waistline by 9 inches, which is my waist to my hip line, and I'll just mark it there. So this point now, I'm going to extend it in a straight line, all the points that I've marked. So I'm going to extend it in a straight line. I'm going to mark my dart measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. So I'm going to mark 4 inches because I'm not drafting this on a pattern paper. I'm drafting this directly on the fabric. If not, I would have marked 3.5, but because this is on a fabric, I am marking 4 inches. Okay, I did half an inch for seam allowance. I'm just going to mark it on all the lines that are on this fabric, and then I will connect all the points in a straight line. So right now I am going to mark the chest line. Remember, I just marked the bust point, under bust and whatnot. So I'm marking the chest line. Remember to minus 5 inches because we are cutting this as an off shoulder, and that's line I'm just going to extend it to make it very bold and visible. So on the dart leg now, I am going to mark 1 inch on both sides of the dart leg, and then at the under bust I'm also going to mark 1 inch on both sides of the dart leg. So I'm going to connect those points to make the bust point on each side of the dart leg. I'm just going to connect the points to make the bust point, and I'll also repeat the same thing for the under bust as well. So please, while you are connecting it to make the bust point, make sure you are making it curve. So I lost focus for a moment, but I corrected myself anyway. So I'm just trying to curve it out to meet those 2 points on each side of the dart leg. So the next thing to do now is to mark my bust measurement on the bust line, that's the bust point line, and also on the chest line. Okay, and from there I'm going to just slightly curve it, like coming from the top part of the fabric to meet that 1 inch after the dart leg. I'm going to slightly curve it into that 9 inches or that bust measurement. And then for this front part, I want it to have a sweet neck line, so you can see the curve I made there. So I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of the dart leg all through to the bottom part. So I've marked on the waist, I'm going to mark on the hip, and I'll just repeat the same thing down to the full length, and also extend this dart leg down to the full length as well. But before I do that, I am going to mark my waist measurement and my hip measurement before I extend the dart leg. So I'm marking my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches, and then plus these 2 inches that we are going to take out from the dart leg, so that our fabric is not shortened. Meanwhile, I just added 1 inch for seam allowance, so not 2 inches. I added 1 inch for seam allowance. So I'm going to connect it to meet the bust point or to meet the waistline. From the bust point to the waistline, you get what I mean? And I'm going to divide my hip divide by 4 plus 2 inches from the dart leg, and then plus 1 for seam allowance, for sewing allowance, whatever. Then I'll connect it to with the waistline as well. So while you're doing this, you want to make sure that the waistline is not too edgy and too sharp. You want to curve it out a little bit to meet the hip line. So from that point now, I'm going to move to making the side dart, because I want this to have a side dart. I do not want that bulginess at the back when I put my zipper. So what I did was to come down by the difference between my waist measurement and my back measurement, which is 1.5. I just came down by 1.5 from the bust area, and then I connected it to meet the bust point. Okay, you see that part that I shaded? That's what I'm going to cut out at the end of the day. So right now I am going to extend that leg, just like I said before. I'm going to extend it to meet the full length of this dress. Now that that is done, I am going to mark my hip measurement, then plus the 2 inches from the dart, and then plus 1 inch for my seam allowance. So I've already calculated how much it is, how many inches it is, and then I'm just marking it at once instead of having too many mark points. So that's basically extending my hip measurement in a straight line downwards. So right now I'm going to cut across the lines that I've marked. So just watch me as I cut this out. So when I cut to the top part, I am just going to cut out the sweetheart that I have here. So mind you, if you want to recreate this for yourself, make sure you do this drafting on a pattern paper. I could not lay my hands on a pattern paper, that's why I just decided to draft it on the fabric. Okay, so that there will be no joining at the side that area. So I've cut out the sweetheart area, and I've also cut out the other side, the curve that leads to the armhole. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting out the posterior area and the dart leg. So just watch the rest of the video. So if you notice, I'm not cutting exactly on the line, just because I did not use a pattern paper for this. So I do not want my measurement to be shortened. What I'm just doing is I'm just leaving like half or quarter of an inch that we use for the stitching allowance along that area. Okay, so up next I'm going to cut out the side that I marked earlier. And if you also observe, I'm not marking exactly on that line, just for me not to have shortness of fabric, okay, or shortness of measurement when I'm done stitching. So that's the reason why I recommend you drafting this on a pattern paper first before you transfer to your fabric. That way it is easy for you to add seam allowance to the place that is necessary. So at this point, I'm just trying to make sure that the waist points are aligned, and I am going to mark from the hip upwards by 6 inches, and I will mark it at that 6 inches. This is necessary because you want to know where that white fabric is going to be starting from. Should I call it a flounce or whatever? Yeah, this is the point that it's going to be starting from. So I've marked it, and I'll also go ahead to notch it so I'm not confused as to where it's going to start from when I start joining that white fabric to it. Now to the back part, we are going to take out 5 inches like we did in the front part. The back is just basically very easy. So from that point now, I'm just going to mark the waist measurement, the bust line, the hip line, and yeah, that's all. And also the chest line too. So the chest line, the bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. Remember to minus 5 inches because we are cutting this as an off shoulder. Okay, so those lines now I'm going to make them very visible before I start marking my horizontal measurement. Now on the chest line, I'm going to mark my round bust measurement on the chest line and also the bust point line. I'm going to mark my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 9 inches. And at the top or the starting line here, I'm marking 6 inches. Okay, so I'm just from that 6 inches, I'm just going to slightly curve it to meet that 9 inches that I marked on the chest line. Okay, just in case you're not understanding, just follow what I'm doing. Then now on the waistline, I'm going to mark my round waist measurement, divide by 4. Then I'm going to come down from that waistline by 9 inches, which is my hip measurement. So while doing this, when I was marking the waistline, I minus the 1.5 inch I took out for the side dart. So my waist measurement for my front is different from that for my back. So my back now was 16.5 inches, while for my front it is 16.5 inch minus 1.5, which is 15 inches. Okay, so I've gone ahead now to mark my hip round measurement, and I'm just connecting all these points together. So you can see now that it's not looking like it's looking very sharp around that waist area, but I'm just going to curve it out a little bit. So at this point now, I'm going to mark my 1 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to add it on the waistline, the bust line, and the hip line, just like I did in front. Remember, it was 1 inch that we used for our seam allowance. Then I'll connect the 3 points together. After that, I'm going to mark the dart leg just like I did in front. So what I'm marking is 4 inch on the waistline. In fact, on all the lines starting from the starting line down to the hem of the dress. Okay, the reason why we are doing it this way is because there is supposed to be an opening where the white fabric is going to come in. So that's the reason why that leg is going to extend all the way to the hem of the dress. Now I'm just going to mark I'm just going to connect these marked points in a straight line this way, and I'll extend it all the way to the hem of the dress. So while I'm doing so, I am also extending the hip measurements plus my seam allowance all the way to the hem of the dress. Just the hip measurement downwards, straight downwards, okay? So at this point now, I'm just going to cut this out, and I want you guys to just see what I'm doing and also do the same for your dress if you are recreating this. Just like I did in front, I'm going to come up from the waist, from the hip line by 6 inches, and I will mark it and also notch it. This is indicating where the white fabric is going to start from or is going to come in. Here now, I'm going to turn this. I'm going to notch this part first, then I will place them together. Just watch what I'm doing. I'll make sure that this notch part is facing each other, then I'll place it together like this and then flip it to the other side, more like folding it on that line. You get? If not, just watch the video and do exactly what I'm doing. Then I'll come at the hem of this dress, then I will mark 1 inch and I'll connect it to that notch part where the white fabric is supposed to come in from. So I'm just going to mark 1 inch and connect it in form of a dart. So this is me marking the 1 inch, and I'll connect it in form of a dart to meet that notched area. Then I'll cut it out. Okay, I just skipped a bit. I did not notch it. I just went ahead to cut it straight. But while you're cutting it, make sure it's like towards the notched area. You're going to make it in form of a V. That's why I said it's going to be in form of a dart. That's been done. I'm going to keep this aside. Remember to do this for all the dart area that we cut out earlier. So I'm going to keep that aside, and we are going to measure the length from the notched area where the white fabric is going to come in from. We are going to measure it all the way to the bottom part, which is what I have here is 44 inches. But I'm just going to use 45 so that we'll trim it out, like if there's any excess. So what I'm doing now is, you see I took the tip of this fabric and I'm going to fold it. I took the tip. From the tip I'm folding it so that the two hem will be meeting each other. That's in a triangle form, right? And I'm just trying to arrange it. By the way, this fabric is a chiffon fabric, while the other one is a crepe. That's the bodice part is a crepe. Okay, so I'm going to fold this again because one cut of it is going to give me 2 pieces. So folding it again will make me have 2 pieces of it. I do not want to buy extra fabric. If you have extra fabric like up to 10 yards or 8 yards, then you can be able to use just one fold for one dart line. But I used 4 yards of this chiffon fabric, and the only thing that was remaining was just small. So just, if you are trying to be more on the economic side, just fold it twice. Okay, so from the tip there I marked 45 inches, which is the length, and I'm just going to hold it at the tip, and I will be marking 45 inches from one side to the other. So right now I'm going to cut through the dotted points, and then we'll have like two, should we say, flay. Yeah, and also remember we folded this twice. We folded once, then we folded second time. So now I'm just going to cut through one part of it so that we'll have two flares. Okay, so I opened it up so that it will be wider. Then I'm going to cut through at the folded end so that we'll have two of these, because the where this white fabric is going to come in is at 6 places, so we need 6 of this. Now that we have 2 of this remaining 4, right, so we are going to repeat the same process of cutting out this white fabric and we'll be done with that. So moving to the front part of the bodice, remember we cut out this side dart, so we are going to join it back like this with just 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, but I used quarter when I was joining it back because that was what I added. So I'm going to join it back with 1/4 inch and come back and show you guys while I stitch these side pieces, that's this side front to the center front. So this is what I have after I'm done with it. And when I was stitching, I stopped at that point where I notched it, where the white fabric is going to be coming in from. So this is what I have for the front part. So I'm going to keep this aside and we'll work on the back. I'm also going to repeat the same thing for the back by just joining the center back and the side back together and stopping at that notch area where the white fabric will start from. So this is what the back looks like, and at this point now we are going to join both the back and the front. So remember when we were cutting out this fabric, we added 1 inch for sewing allowance. So while we are stitching this together, we are going to use that same 1 inch that we added to stitch it down. Okay, so now when you get to this point now where the white fabric, because the white fabric is also going to come in at the sides as well, so we are going to make sure that we notch it. So I'm just using my eye to calculate where the notch is going to start from. You can see I'm trying to align it with the ones I already have, and I also do the same thing for the other side as well, so that when you are joining it, you are just going to stitch all the way to that notch point and you will stop. So after that, this is what I have, and I just turned it over. So this is what it's looking like right now, and I have gone ahead to add the white fabric to some areas, but I left one part so that I'll be able to use it to show you guys how to attach it. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my white fabric just from the tip, that the smallest part. So I'm going to place it like this at where the stitching stopped, and I'm going to stitch all the way to the hem of the dress, or all the way to wherever the white fabric stopped. Okay, so this is what it should look like. I'm going to stitch it all the way to the hem. So after stitching, this is what we have. You can see what we have here. So right now I'm going to stitch the other side of this flame. So what I'm going to do is, the part that I've stitched, I'm just going to turn it to the back. So we are going to start stitching from the black fabric. We are going to start stitching. When we get to this edge, I'm going to flip the part I've already stitched in, then I'll continue stitching. Do you understand? If not, just rewind the video and you get it. So I'm going to stitch all the way to the bottom part, and I've done that, and this is what we have. So I will just repeat all the same process for all 6 pieces, okay, or the remaining 5 pieces. So now let's move over to the top part. Okay, so I'm going to loosen one side of this top part, I'm going to loosen it all the way to this point. Then this is where our zipper is going to be, because this is going to have a side zipper. So I have loosened it now, and I'll just take a piece of fabric. This was what was left of my material, so I just had to make use of what I have. So I'm just going to place it right side on this piece of fabric. Okay, I'm going to place it. Remember, we only opened one side, so I'm going to place it and stitch across the edges. Okay, so I have done that now. I just forgot that I'm supposed to put in my strap, that's my sleeve. So for this sleeve, I want to be able to tie it. That's why you can see that it's very long. Okay, so I'm going to impute the sleeve in between these darts for the back. This is the back before I stitch. So I've placed one sleeve for one dart, then the second strap, I'm going to place it on the second dart. This is for the back, while I do the same thing for the front as well, just placing the straps in between the dart line, in between the two fabric on the dart line. Okay, so when you are done placing the straps in between the dart line, in between the fabric on the dart line, then you can just go ahead and stitch it. Okay, so that's just it. I have gone ahead to do that. Right now I am going to cut tracing my main fabric. I'm going to cut out the excesses on the piece of fabric, tracing what we have on our main fabric. Okay, so that's just basically it. When we are done, we're going to flip this over, give it a good press, and I think that's all. After we've trimmed out the excesses, we just go ahead and notch that very deep curve along the curve, so that when we turn this over, it's just going to relax. Okay, we are just going to notch all through the edges. So this is what we have it looking like after we flipped it. So what I'm just going to do now is to attach the zipper at the side here, and that's just it. So guys, if you ended up enjoying this video, please kindly give it a big thumbs up. It will help my video go far, and also subscribe to join the family. Thanks guys.